Um, yeah. So dedicating tonight's class to Yosef Dovber ben Harold, his neshama should have an aliyah, and Yael Bas Miriam for koach and strength and hatzlacha and bracha.
Thank you.
So, um, so it's really nice to see so many people come on, and I see Yakova's just come on. So this week is Parshas Mishpatim, but as usual, um, we'll start with the Hayom Yom, and there's a couple that I want to do today. The first one was the Hayom Yom from today being Wednesday, the 24th of the month of Shvat, which, including other things, speaks about the fact that it says, if you only knew that Tzemach Tzedek said, the power of verses of Tehillim
Hmm.
and their effect in the highest heavens. You
You'd be
would
saying it
recite
24
them
hours.
constantly if you
Hmm.
only knew. Know that the chapters of Tehillim shatter all barriers. They ascend higher and still higher
There she
with
is.
no interference. They prostrate themselves in supplication before the Master of all worlds, and they effect and accomplish with kindness and compassion. So that's quite a testimony to the power of Tehillim, that if we contemplate them, we shouldn't underestimate the power of them, the resonance of the words. If we talk in energetic vibrations, just saying the words, even if you don't always understand them, has a power. But I personally like to look at an English translation
Hmm.
and say them together with the translation. Um, so that is a plug for Tehillim. And
Can you
then
say the last line again?
the last line, the last line says that know that the chapters of Tehillim shatter all barriers. They ascend higher and still higher with no interference. They prostrate themselves, the chapters, in supplication before the Master of all worlds. In other words, little aleph base letters and psukim bowing down before the Master of all worlds, and they affect and accomplish with kindness and compassion. So affecting positive changes in the world. And then the Hayom Yom for Friday, which is befitting because we're going to be having our, I should say, annual Shabbaton. And it's all about unity and ahava and how important it is for Hasidim in particular to connect to each other. And when I feel like a lot of what we learn is based in Hasidus, not all of it. So we could call ourselves Hasidim in some way. And it says that ahava, which is affection, is the breadth of life in the avoda of Hasidus. So in Tanya, a lot of our effort is how to create the right mindset that we have love, the right emotions towards Hashem, and those right emotions usually translate as the right, a love that's vital and awake and alive and aroused, like a burning fire, and also the appropriate awe of Hashem. But here they're saying also the affection of one member of the Hasidic chevra, the I don't want to say brotherhood, can say sisterhood, that the avod of Hasidus is the thread that binds Hasidim to each other, that binds Rebbes, our Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, or any Rebbe and his Hasidim, to his Hasidim and the Hasidim to the Rebbe. Ahava works in a direct way, initiated affection, and also in a reflective way, responding to others' affection. It knows no barriers and transcends the limits of time and space. So this is very powerful teaching. It's very simple, but it's very powerful teaching that don't underestimate the power of connection between people. I would say that this is the success behind all the Chabad houses, that as much as
Hmm.
the shluchim are trying to teach Hasidus wherever they go, they open their houses and their homes and they offer love and warmth to people who are maybe students on campus or foreigners in a foreign place. This idea that if you a member of the Jewish people, then you're my brother, you're my sister, and I literally make an effort to open my heart to you, and that is an essential aspect of the avoda of Chassidus. So a person can say, well, how do I do that avoda? Like, how do you just love people? So the Tanya will tell us, we haven't got there yet, but it'll tell us in chapter 32 that when you realize that we all made up of the same stuff, we have our source coming from the same place, we're all rooted in our Father in heaven. We all literally like cosmic siblings. And even more than that, we share the essence of us is our Chelek Elokai, our Neshama, and that's shared with other Yidden too, and that's like to like. So the Alter Rebbe makes it very, very clear. And usually when I teach that, I bring two flames together, and the flames literally bind one neshama flame to another neshama flame. They literally bind together. They're separated by the wax bodies of the candle, but the flames, there's no separation. So to understand the source, so to really do the mitzvah of loving another Jew as yourself, the more you understand the source of each person's neshama, the more you can open your heart to loving them in a way, or bonding, or feeling, bridging the distance or the division that usually exists between people. We feel like we're disconnected. But if you connect it to your soul in this kind of vibrant, fiery, neshama on fire way, then you understand that you can bond to that person because, in a sense, you are they and they are you. On a very deep level, we come from the same place. So that's the inspiring words from the Hayom Yom. And now we are going to go into Parshas Mishpatim. So I'm going to share the screen. And sorry, yeah, everyone's good. We
Okay,
cool?
yes.
Okay, good. All right. So we're going to share the screen, and we're coming into Parshas Mishpatim, and everybody has the questions usually on Parshas Mishpatim, because last week we had and we didn't speak about it so much. We were discussing really the relationship between Yitro and Moshe, but really Yitro and Moshe meeting was sort of just a warm up for the experience of Matan Torah, and Hashem appearing to Moshe and to all of the Yidden, revealing himself and revealing the Torah. And by the way, I was cleaning up my living room, and I have lots of notebooks on the shelf, and I came across a shir from last year or a previous year about Yitro. And just, we didn't speak about the actual experience of Matan Torah, but it was very powerful. And it starts with Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am God, your God. And then there was all those beautiful conversations of what did the Yidden really hear? Did they hear the whole first two commandments? Did they just hear that word Anochi? Did they just hear the Aleph, which is very mysterious because the Aleph is a silent letter, but that there was this cosmic union of an intention of Hashem communicating something to all the Yidden, and depending on the different Meforshim, what they heard, the first two commandments, or just the word Anochi, I am, that contains everything, or just the I, just the Aleph. And also this beautiful teaching that everybody who was there, they heard whatever they heard in the sound of the voice within their own consciousness. Some people, I think some of Mephoshim said they heard it in the sound of the voice of their own father, or a familiar voice, that everybody heard a voice in their own head. So on the one hand, we could think of the Hollywood, revelation of I am God, your God, and everyone's hearing that outside voice. And then some of our mystical teachers tell us that each person heard the voice within their own consciousness, which is very beautiful and deep because it feeds into the idea of listening to one's inner voice and intuition. And sometimes that's where we hear Hashem's voice. In fact, I remember teaching you in a previous class that if you're davening, and you suddenly get an idea, or some kind of voice pops into your head that that can be considered Ruach HaKodesh, because you get it while you're davening and in communion with Hashem. So these this attuning to what we know within our own beings and what we hear. Of course, one has to be discerning, and it doesn't mean you justify everything you feel like doing and say, I heard a voice of God in my head. But so anyway, so that was last week, Matan Torah, this revelation of Hashem to the people. And then when we come to Mishpatim, a lot of people say that we should now be talking about this very mystical, magical revelation that happened, and talk about, very mystical and very elevated things. And instead, Mishpatim is very bread and butter about things that are going on day to day in the life of the people. And this idea that the whole point of Torah is in order to manifest a society that functions in a harmonious way, and that all the little details that are going on are important, and they all show consideration one person to another, and damages and injuries, and if my cow gores your cow, and all of these different things. So we're going to start looking at where the parsha starts, which is this idea of slavery. And when we talk about slavery, we have to appreciate that at the time, and in historic times, there was slavery in all nations. Everyone was practicing different variations of slavery. So Rabbi Jonathan Sachs says that really the way the Torah approaches this idea of slavery is it couldn't just say, you were slaves in Egypt to Pharaoh. Now you know what it's like to be a slave. So we outlawing slavery altogether, no slaves at all. That wouldn't have kind of flown in the context of the times. And that what the Torah does is try to bring levels of humanity into the construct of slavery, try and elevate it, try and make it that instead of it being oppressive, it becomes more and more conscious and more conscientious about how you treat slaves, until there's an eventual gradual weaning away from slavery, and that people eventually feel that it's not something that belongs in their worlds anymore. But don't think that it didn't exist in the times. At the same time that the Torah tells us that, and tells us that Torah is trying to make this experience of slavery as humane and as conscientious and as responsible as possible, they also, of course, like all the halachas, levels and levels and levels to look at what's going on. So we'll just start here that Hashem says, these are the laws that you should set in front of them. And right away it says, if you buy a Hebrew bondsman, ki tikneh Eved Ivri, so this is a Jewish slave, from the court, he must serve his master for 6 years, and in the 7th year, he must go free without any further obligation to make any payment. And the reason why some people might have been serving as a servant or being an Eved Ivri is if they stole and they didn't have prison sentences and jail, so the person could work even for the person from whom he stole to pay back the money. So there's all kinds of social justices happening through this Torah version of what it means to be to work for another person as an Eved Ivri, and we know from the halachas really that it says if the master only has one pillow in the house, he has to give that pillow to his servant, to his slave. His slave needs to eat before he does. It's not so simple. It's not just you could just abuse him and treat him like garbage. It's not like that at all.
Not rude.
That was funny.
What?
It's not roots.
It's not.
Did you see?
Oh, it's not roots. Exactly. If he comes to his service single, he has to leave his service single. If he had a wife, his wife will leave his master's care with him. If he has a Jewish wife and his master gives him a non-Jewish bondswoman for a wife and she bears him sons or daughters, the non-Jewish wife and her children will belong to her master. When he leaves his master's service, he must leave alone. And then we have this very interesting thing that if this Eved Ivri says, actually, I didn't do so well as an independent person. I'm not so good at taking care of my details. I like living as a helper, Eved Ivri for my master. He takes care of my food. He gives me room and board. And actually, I don't want to go free. I'm happy serving him where I am. So there's this very interesting ceremony that the master has to bring him to the court, and they must take him to a door which should be standing upright like a doorpost, and his master should pierce his right earlobe, and the bondsman then serves him until the Yovel, that's the 50th year. And why does he get an earring or something nailed into his ear? Because his ear heard the commandment from Hashem that Hashem is our only God and that we should be free to serve just Hashem. But he's very comfortable serving his master, so he's allowed to, but he has to have this thing that, didn't you hear that you're supposed to be a free man serving only God? And then he can stay. So starting from this part, yes.
I just was wondering, can the master say, no, I don't want you as my Eved anymore? Like, does the master have to take him as a slave after that?
That's a good
I mean,
question.
maybe the master is completely and thoroughly sick of him.
Yeah,
and he doesn't
exactly.
want him there. Honestly, I'm not 100% sure. So I don't want to give you an answer. Let's just see if Rashi answers that, because I didn't look at the Rashi on that just yet. So let's see if the Rashi says, the master must consult with the sellers who sold him. They put him through. Yeah. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, bum, bum. Yeah. It doesn't say over here. It doesn't say over here, really. So I'm not sure. So I guess it's a good question for homework. So when it comes to this part, if a man sells his daughter as a bondwoman, she may not leave his service as non-Jewish bond servants do. So I want to look at Rabbi David Foreman on this very verse. And once again, I feel like Rabbi David Foreman really opens up these Pesukim and gives us ways to appreciate what's going on in a very sensible and enlightened way. So he says, of course, when we look at this, this idea of a female servitude, it could seem almost barbaric in our day and age, but the Torah does recognize the institution of servitude or slavery. It was a fact of life in the ancient world, and it took thousands of years and the advent of industrialization to finally get rid of this in most of the world. And we know that in some parts of the world it's still existing. But the Torah, written in a time in which slavery was a brute economic fact, it seeks to make it more humane. And it didn't, if it would have tried to ban it outright, it probably wouldn't have gone so well. So according to the Torah in Parshas Mishpatim, a father has a right to sell his daughter into servitude, but not just any daughter. He's only allowed to sell a little daughter. In other words, a daughter who's before bat mitzvah. Now, when you read the law, it might strike you as being very awful that a father is selling his daughter into servitude. How primitive, how beastly, how oppressive or whatever. The whole thing doesn't seem to even make economic sense. If you're selling a girl into slavery who's a teenager, a young adult, so she could really do solid work. She could be a housemaid. She could do a lot of things. But if it's just a girl who's under bat mitzvah, so she's 11, she's 10, 9, 8, or 7, right? So what is this all about? And Rabbi Foreman is saying, try to get rid of all your prejudices about things and just have an open mind. And let's look carefully at the text. So he says, and then we'll see what's going on here. So first of all, it says, V'chi, so it says, V'chi yemkor ish et bito la'ama lo tetzei ketzeit ha'avadim. So when a man sells his daughter as a maidservant, she shall not leave servitude the way other servants leave servitude. She may not leave his service as the non-Jewish bondservants do, or even like so. Rabbi Foreman is saying this is which other servants are we talking about? Given the context, one would guess male servants, which is to say that, which is to say that the verse seems to be asserting that female servants aren't supposed to leave their masters the way that a male servant would leave. But the Gemara is puzzled by this because, in fact, the Talmud shows that a female servant leaves exactly the way a male servant leaves. For example, a male servant is allowed to serve only for 6 years, and in the 7th year, he goes free. And a female servant also has to go free in the 7th year. And a male servant, even one who wants to stay longer, has to leave in the Jubilee year, on the 50th year. And a female servant would also have to leave on the 50th year. So why does it say she shall not leave his servants like, and here it says the non-Jewish bondservants, but in my translation that he's using, it just says, this is not actually in the text, non-Jewish. It just says the way other servants leave. And that's one problem. He said, let's move on and continue. And so what's the difference between this female servant and a young girl servant, right, and a male? And the next thing the Torah tells us is about this female servant. If she is displeasing in the eyes of her master, who should have designated her as a wife for himself, and he must assist in her redemption, he is not authorized to sell her to another master, for he betrayed her. Okay, so in the translation here, they have a few little words here that are not in bold. So it's kind of giving away some of the story here. But basically, if she's undesirable in the eyes of her master, such that he doesn't want to marry her during her term of servitude, he is to redeem her. So this is kind of strange because we're talking about servitude and now we're talking about marriage and, what's going on here. So this puzzling verse is taken by the Talmud to mean that if the girl is so reprehensible in the eyes of the master that he chooses not to marry her, then he, the master, must give the father the opportunity to redeem his daughter at a prorated price. So what does that mean? So, for example, if the father sold his daughter into servitude for a total of $6,000, for example, for 6-year term, and now she only has 2 years left, and then if the master is not happy with her or he doesn't want to marry her, he wants to send her home, then he should allow the father to buy her back for $2,000, not the $6,000 for which she was initially sold. And that's the opportunity the master is to give her father should the master not want to marry her. And the whole thing is, why are we talking about marriage here? And then it says, the next verse says, and let's just read all these words before we go on. And if the master designates her as a wife for his son, the son must accord her the standard rights of girls who marry. In other words, she has to have the same level of rights as any other girl that he chooses to marry, the son of the master. And if he marries other wives, because in those days they could marry other wives, he may not reduce this girl who's now become a wife, he may not reduce her food, her clothing, or even her conjugal rights. And if the master decides that none of these three courses of action are for her, she needs to go free and without any additional payment. And I think it also, yeah. So, and then it says, yeah, over here I missed it. He is not authorized to sell her. If he doesn't want to marry her and he doesn't give her to his son, he's not authorized to sell her to any other person. And then it says in a very interesting way here, for he betrayed her for not marrying her. And Rabbi Foreman brings a very interesting comment over here, and he says that really in our I'll just stop the share for a minute. In our society, if a person has wealth and if a person has riches, let's say, and they go to fancy schools, and he even mentions, let's say they go to an Ivy League school. What's the accomplishment of the Ivy League school? It's not, and now we know that Ivy League schools have come into a great deal of scrutiny, and we're not sure what is accomplished. But let's say in the good old days, it wasn't so much what they learned, but it's the fact that they could, what's the word, hobnob with other people in upper classes, so that once they graduated, they would have contacts. And if they went into law, or they went into whatever they went into, they had a whole network of social people that were also in the same bracket as they were. And what he's saying is that really the only kind of person that would offer their child to be a maidservant in the home of another person is probably a man who had come upon hard times. And he's looking for a way that his daughter could actually join a family, a wealthy family, or a more wealthy family. And the Torah and the way Rabbi David Foreman explains it is that this was an act of how to create social, how does he put it? That I'm looking for the right word, that instead of the rich staying rich and the poor staying poor, there's a way that the societies can integrate. That here's a poor girl from a poor family, and the Torah is saying that you could put her into this family, and she really grows up in the family. She's 6 years working there. Let's say she starts at the age of 7 or 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, or she started at 10. The idea is that the wealthier man's family should come to know her, should come to love her, and then she marries into that family. And once she marries into that family, she's given all the rights of any other, let's say, rich girl that the master of that home or the son of that master would marry. And that the Torah is actually giving a great example of social mobility through these rules and laws that look at first as if they're oppressive, that the man is putting his his daughter into slavery, but actually she's apprenticing in a way with this family, and the whole intent of this mechanism is that she becomes part of this family and that um she becomes beloved as part of that family. And actually the law even says that she can't ever have her food, her clothing, or even her conjugal rights, even if, you know, the master or his son bring in other girls, which is a great act of social equalizing in order that the poor have a way of joining the families of the rich. So I thought that that was
Can I say something?
actually very interesting and a very interesting reworking, or not reworking, but looking at this institution of slavery, but really can be viewed at as a very different way. Yakova, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to say two things. One of them is, was it really common for pre-bar mitzvah age girls to get married in
So,
that era?
so
I mean, I know
first
about
of all,
Rivka Imenu, but that's a little different. Yeah.
but also the thing is, she doesn't get married right away. She's growing up in this family of the people that she's been kind of really, let's say the poor, let's say, just to use poor and rich, right? The poor man sees that he doesn't have so many opportunities for his girl, and
No, I get that. I
he
get that. You mentioned it. I get it. No, I
right.
totally get that. But I
So
haven't,
she's not getting married right away.
okay.
When she's there for 6 years or so,
It's acquiring her future marriage. Okay.
then
All right. I
he's
get that.
so when she exactly got married, it's more that she's becoming close to the family. They get to know her, and then when her, you know, her
Servitude?
apprenticeship is sort of over, then the
I get it.
halacha
Okay.
states, and it even says that if he chooses not to marry her, he's betrayed her.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I
That's
get
the
it. I get it.
intention
Okay.
of the
But I have
whole
another
thing.
question.
Sure,
I have another
sure,
question.
sure.
In where it says about that if they have say he marries her off to his son, and then the son gets an additional wife or more additional wives, they can't diminish her food, clothing, and conjugal rights. But every kasuba says that. So
But I'm
unless they
saying
weren't
that it's a
kasubas then,
valid marriage. It can't be that she's the slave girl marriage and then he can favor his, in his class marriage. It means that she has every right. She's fully married. She has all the rights of any other wife he will have.
if she has a kasuba, why would it even be a question?
Well,
Well, they have ketubas back then?
you might have the question, you might think she came into the marriage in this way, maybe her status might be different, but it says
Why wouldn't her kasuba reflect that if that's what people would have reason to think? A kasuba
Were
is a
there
kasuba. It's a
ketubas back
contract.
then, though? Was there a marriage contract back then?
What?
Were there ketubas back then? Maybe there weren't ketubas back then, so we don't
Yeah,
really
I don't
know
know.
how.
I'm wondering if there were kasubas then. Maybe that's why they specify this.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that.
But
But
if the girl didn't want
I
to get married,
I I I what I found interesting about this was the what I found interesting about this was just the attempt at social engineering in such a way that it, number one, isn't what it looks like at first. At first, it looks like poor girl, she's being sold into slavery.
Mm-hmm.
But in actual fact, it's her opportunity for upward social mobility by becoming part of this family and putting the onus on the master and on his son, if not him, but his son, that they should really take this girl in and that she becomes part of their family. So I thought that was
Yeah, that does
interesting.
sound.
what if
Um,
she doesn't want it though?
what happens if she doesn't want it?
She doesn't want to marry them.
She doesn't have to marry because because it says in I forget which pasha, but you have to have the girl's consent in order to
Yes,
get
if
married.
she
Oh,
if
okay.
she doesn't want to, then she could go free at the end of her term, right? She could go free at the end of her term if he doesn't want, or
What parsha was
um,
that was in
um,
where it specifically says you cannot marry if she doesn't
well, it's
consent?
maybe it was from Rivka when Eliezer
Maybe.
went to Rivka, and then they asked her, "Do you consent
Hmm.
to go?" And then she said she wanted to go. I think maybe that's
Right.
from because a lot of I think that's probably is because
Okay.
they definitely did ask. So that's the one thing I wanted to share with you. Just this look at this particular piece about the slavery and the bond, the daughter, and what it's actually as opposed to what it might seem at first glance. And then the other thing that I wanted to bring up is the idea, and this is from Dovbe Pinson, that, and I think we've spoken about it a little bit before, that um, we come into this world and we living in this particular incarnation, this particular Gilgul. But, and in this particular Gilgul, especially in this particular Parsha, there's lots of details. If you find your neighbor's property, if you this, if you that, lots of laws and legal realities about what should happen. There's the Zohar talks about Gilgulim in relation to this parsha, reincarnations, because it so happens that things get played out in things come from a previous lifetime and get played out in this lifetime. So if I go back to the share and we look at the we look at like if an adult strikes a man and the ladder dies, you know, but if he wasn't lying in wait and if this happened and if he intentionally killed him but he didn't kill him and whatever, and then if he this happens and that one, and if a person kidnaps, all of these things, if this happens and if that happens and whatever. So the Zohar says some of these things that are going on are Gilgulim stories playing out. So, for example, this one that I've just read here. Um, um, an adult who strikes a man so that the latter dies must be put to death. If, however, he did not lie in wait, but Hashem caused it to happen to him, I will provide you a place to which he can flee. And then we know that we have the whole thing of the cities of refuge. But why would it happen that a man is sort of without meaning to, he's the cause of another man dying? Like even if it was an accident, why would that happen? What's going on? Yeah, thank you, Yaakov.
Hmm.
Uh, Yaakov tells us that they hadn't really gotten to ketubas at that stage, just when they came fresh off Matan Torah, they hadn't quite worked out all the legal stuff. So if someone strikes, okay, so how did it happen that one man accidentally causes the death of another man? So the Zohar says these are stories that can be related to previous Gilgulim. I have another story for you, and I think that the story is here. Yeah. So I'm going to give you a story, and then we'll talk more about it. So Rabbi Dov Ber, the Maggid of Mezrich, once requested his teacher, the Baal Shem Tov, to reveal to him the secrets of reincarnation and Gilgulim. Now, by the way, the word Gilgulim, such a beautiful word because a Gilgul is a circle. And a skull is the word for skull in Hebrew has the same letters. Let me just tell you what it is. The word skull in Hebrew is a skull in Hebrew. It's the same letters. It's golgolet. So skull is golgelet, Gilgul is a circle, And a Gilgul is also reincarnation. So the soul is, circling back and forth. So Dov Ber, the Maggid of Mezrich, wanted the Baal Shem Tov to reveal to him the secret of reincarnation. The Baal Shem Tov encouraged him to travel to a certain location and told him that when he will reach a tree with a stream nearby, he should rest there until evening and observe what will transpire and then return. But he was clearly instructed not to interfere or participate in what would happen there, but only observe. And that is exactly what he did. He traveled to that particular location. He sat down and noticed a traveler passing by. The traveler put down his bags, rested for a bit, ate something before continuing on his way. And when the traveler left, the Maggid saw that his wallet was accidentally left behind. And the Maggid also remembered that he had been instructed to observe and not participate. So soon along came another traveler who rested in the very same place. While lying there, the second traveler noticed the unmarked wallet, picked it up and put it in his pocket and left. Now I see lots of messages. Hang on. So let me just see, because I told people ask me questions and then I have to answer them. Okay. All right, there we go. Okay. So a few moments later, a third man came along, and he had just sat down to rest his tired body when along came the first person, the one who had lost his wallet. Assuming that this third man had found and pocketed his wallet, he asked for it back. When the man honestly denied any wrongdoing, the first traveler lost his temper and gave him a bit of a beating. Puzzled, the Maggid returned to the Baal Shem Tov and told him everything that happened. And the Baal Shem Tov explained, in a previous life, the first person owed the second one the amount of money that was found in the wallet, but refused to pay him. When they went to their rabbi, who was the third person in this event, the rabbi carelessly ruled incorrectly and did not demand the first person to pay up. So each one was now repaid appropriately, because the one that got beat up, he was the adjudicator and he was careless and he made the wrong judgment, so he got beaten up. The one who lost his money, he lost it because he owed it to the other guy who ended up finding it. So all the things that happened were actually tikkunim. So Rabbi Dov Pinson talks about this parsha in terms of this, and also I said that the Rambam talks about it as well. Not the Rambam, I'm sorry, the Zohar talks about it, and that this idea of Matan Torah that we just experienced, and the greatness of Hashem revealing all these all the magnificence of the Torah and linking heaven and earth, it comes down to all these little nitty-gritty things. Experiencing oneness is translated into treating every human being and their property with respect. As Hashem is one, everything and everyone belongs to Hashem. If our spiritual experiences of revelation or of praying or studying Torah do not translate into the day-to-day behavior, then we have a disconnect. So the Torah's revelation of oneness and truth and all of that has to come down into all these civil realities, fairnesses, rules of behavior, etc. So talking about the story of these civil rules and the Zohar and the Gilgulim, it says generally our souls incarnate to reach our fullest actualization. Each reincarnation articulates another element of our soul. Each incarnation is a different person with a different tikkun. and a rectification of the particular element of the soul revealed in that incarnation. So we all come in here and we have different things that we're supposed to do, and different personalities will experience different events differently. So, and each person is going to be getting events that are happening to them, really designed to help their soul rectify, polish, deal with, pay for, suffer for all these different circumstances, based on what their soul is really needing in this world. So, in conclusion to that idea, our goal in our present life is to fully articulate our particular aspect of soul within our lifetime and not incur a reincarnation of this unique self in the process. So the Torah wants to make sure that if you injure someone or if you damage their property, that the Torah wants you to make sure that you do the repair in as specific way as you need to, so that you don't have to come back and repair it again next time round. So that's the way, that's one of the reasons why it's so specific, that each person who's doing what they do should have very specific ways to deal with conscious acts, unconscious acts, or careless acts, or whatever, that each person should be very specifically compensated, or actions should be very specifically dealt with, so that it's not what we call a moom on the neshama, an injury on the neshama that's not repaired, because then they would have to come back and deal with it again. So that is what that story was. And this is also about holding something for somebody, finding an object, stealing an object, all of these things. If we're not meticulous in our treatment of our physicality, that registers on the soul, because we are not bodies with the soul, we souls in bodies. So the Torah making all of our behavior so specific, and any way of injuring another person or their property has to be accounted for, so that it doesn't leave an imprint on the neshama that is going to be something that the person would have to deal with and then continue into the next lifetime. So if we approach all of the Mishpatim here in a way of understanding that every single law is to make sure that the integrity of our neshama is completely intact. You know, it's almost like a person gets very preoccupied with their physical well-being, and they want to know that and I know some people like this, each and every food item that is not pure and healthy is going to make an impact or leave a residue on their beings. They want to make sure that everything is 100%. So this list of things are all to make sure that a person in his behavior is making sure that his neshama, when it leaves this earth, is as intact with his neshama as possible. In other words, what needs to be stressed is that these are not random laws. They laws that reflect realities in the spiritual world, and that, so to speak, if you punch somebody and they suffer a bruise, let's just say, you have to take accounting for that on your neshama. And if you don't, then you're going with the impact of that action into the next world, which is not a good thing. So by the Torah being very specific and saying, if you do this, you have to be you have to be accountable. It's saying every single thing in this world and every single thing that you're doing is making impacts on your soul, and you want to make sure that your soul can stay as free of impediments as possible. And what I'm trying to say is that the laws are not random. They literally, for each law is a spiritual truth of what's going to keep your neshama radiant and shining, or one of the things that's prohibited in the list of Mishpatim is something that energetically, if you traverse that, or another way? I guess traverse that. If you do that, you are causing injury to your neshama. So instead of it, a whole lot of laws that your neshama has to and you have to submit to, it's the other way around. Your neshama has to be protected and your neshama has to be kept damage free. So make sure that none of these things happen, because each one of these things could injure or damage your neshama in such a way. And so be very meticulous about all of these things so that your neshama stays radiant, as bright as possible. And so looking into them would be great respect for each person, for their body, for their property, for what they own, for their land, for their, I guess, their body, their property, their land, their family. Tremendous respect in how we treat them, because these things are all not just important for the person, but important for the maintenance of our own soul health. That's what I wanted to share. And I don't know if there are any questions or comments. Yeah, it's a long list, and every year I talk about we talk about these laws, but we don't. There's so many of them, but at least this year I'm happy that we dealt with the specifics of this daughter who's going into the home of a family that's saying, treat her well, take care of her, let her become part of your family. She's, be socially responsible for those less fortunate than you. Give her a chance, let her, as a representative of her family, make that step into a different future. Anyway, that's what I have for today. Yes. Any comments, questions? Susan.
Around people's imagery of all negative in terms of slavery. I mean, I've heard similar things before. It's not new to me, but it's still very moving. You take something that we associate with just evil and bad and disrespect into something holy. And the other thing is, I just want to acknowledge the work you have been doing for the last weeks and the last week and this next few days to make this huge event so spectacular. Being of service again on another level, taking it to a new level every year. And this should be mazel and bracha. And thank you.
Thank you, Susan. I appreciate that. And to those of you who are coming, I'm excited to have you. And to those of you who are not coming, we'll miss you. And yeah, it's just, I'm very excited and happy to be able to do it, and for people to come together and
to meet the person that you've been talking about for years.
Yeah, really. This is exciting.
Yeah, it is funny because when I have my my books, my Pasha books, I have 5 of her books, all I have a lot of her books in my bookshelf, so that's really fun. So if anybody is not coming for Shabbos but wants to come Motzei Shabbos, Linda, if you feel like it, if you want to join us, if you're missing us too much, come Motzei Shabbos. Karen's coming before Shabbos and after Shabbos, so there are different options. Otherwise, I will see everyone on Monday night. I will for Tanya, those who join for Tanya, and otherwise, same time, same place next week on Wednesday.
Bracha, I have a question.
Yes, yes.
So the imprint that you're talking about on the neshama.
Rafa, hi, I'm sorry. I'm going to say goodnight. Thank
All
you.
right.
Bye.
Good night. Good night.
Right. Um, like, can you, is teshuva, does that, I know like there's still like we could do teshuva, right? And, but if we don't like apologize to the person that we hit, is
Well,
there still like an imprint? Is that what you're saying?
well, the magnificence of tshuva is that it really it's a chiddush, a gift of Torah to the world that we can really repair many, 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 many things that we do wrong through tshuva, through apologizing to the person, through doing tshuva with Hashem. In Tanya class, we spoke about different kinds of tshuva that the person can undertake on their own, or even death. There's certain kinds of cleansing actions that help the neshama do even a cleansing. If they can't accomplish certain level of cleansing during their lifetime, they can have certain cleansings that come after their lifetime. So tshuva is an amazing miracle. So if you do something wrong and you have this blemish, that's one of the contributions of Torah Judaism, is that you can repair and that you can fix, and that's the miracle of tshuva.
Uh-huh.
I
Right.
hope that answers that question. I see that there's a hand raised, and I think that's Melissa.
Yes.
Melissa, yes, you have a hand raised. Do you have a question, or it was a mistake to raise a hand? Might have been a mistake.
No, she meant to.
Oh, she did. So I see the hand raised, but it's Melissa. Melissa, come in, come in. Okay.
Elizabeth, she's talking to you.
Is there?
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm not seeing a question. So,
Oh, she said that you put her on mute.
well, she can unmute herself now. She can
Oh,
unmute herself if
you
she
can
wants.
unmute yourself.
Is that if you do it, we can't, right?
No, you can.
Oh, okay.
If you want to ask a question,
No, you could. It's
yeah,
just the button.
yeah, you just press next to your audio.
Right.
You just click it again.
Oh, okay. So you can, even if you do it to us, we can still unmute it if we have to.
Yes,
Okay.
definitely. Yeah, if I hear noises coming from somebody,
Mhm.
sometimes I'll mute
Well,
them. But you
can you
can.
unmute her though? Because she's
I
saying she
can't.
can't.
I can't. Well, can she
Uh,
text you her question? Let her text you, because it looks like you're talking to each other. So
she
she
said she's texting me. She said she did unmute,
no, well, she
but
didn't.
I can see that it's
Her
Yeah,
still
video, maybe it's
saying
her
muted.
video she's talking about.
okay. Good night,
Sorry.
Karen. We look forward to
And
seeing
Karen.
you.
Mhm.
Okay, does Melissa have a question that she wants to ask through you, Linda?
Do you want to text your question to me? Question mark. I know she can hear you and me.
Yeah,
She
well,
can hear us.
uh,
Or she can write the question
Write the
too.
question, yeah.
yeah,
So
she could
our
write
goal
that.
actually is
Write the question in the chat.
Yeah, write the question in the chat. Okay, Susan, Sandra.
we don't want our soul to be reincarnated, is what you're saying, because
Well,
you want
if
to
you
hang out
if,
in.
yes, if your soul does all the work that it needs to do, and it doesn't leave any unfinished business, and it
Put it
doesn't
in the
need
chat. I
any
don't know what's
repair,
wrong.
then it
Nothing.
doesn't really have to come back. It
Mhm.
comes back because a job hasn't been finished, or a
Right.
tikkun still needs to be done.
Mhm. Oh,
And when
right.
these unexplained things happen, for example, a person is walking under a ladder and
Mhm.
by mistake knocks the person on the ladder down, who falls
Right.
and dies, and then the Baal Shem Tov says the person who was walking under the ladder has to now go to an Ir Miklat because they needed this, and the person who was on the ladder was supposed to fall anyway, and blah blah blah.
Right. But you didn't
But
want
if
it. You.
if all your stuff is done and everything is, signed, sealed, and taken care of, then you don't have to come back for these experiences, and you
Okay.
don't have to
Mhm. So
tikkun.
our goal is not to come back.
Our goal is not to come back. We love it here. We have beaches. We go to Florida. We drink wine. We have a good time. Go to Shavasana retreat. But
Right.
really, if you don't need to come back, or um, or also, thank you, Yakova. Also, special needs children, for example, my
Yes.
late
Mhm.
daughter Naomi Rivka, there's a teaching that they don't come back for themselves, they come back for everyone else. So if a person comes into this world as a special needs person, and this is interesting for Sorry, I'm sure,
Mhm.
if they compromised in such a way that they can't do what other people can do, they can't do mitzvahs, they can't do a lot of things.
Mhm.
It says they're coming back, they volunteered for
Right.
a
And their
duty.
soul
Their
does its
soul is
mission.
pure, but they're coming
Mhm.
back just for the sake of other people learning to take care of them, other people learning compassion, other people having their hearts opened, other people growing, and they're not coming back for their own tikkun because
Mhm.
they're already past, they're not in the realm of doing tikkunim in that way. That's why I think it was the Chofetz Chaim used to stand up for
Mhm.
handicapped children and such.
I read that somewhere also because of that reason. Where did I
Right,
read that? Where did I hear?
right.
Where
Um,
did I read
Yeah.
that? I read the same thing. Where did
I don't know, but it's you read it because it's true. Yeah, Linda.
Yeah.
yeah, so Melissa's saying the way she's hearing this is that so she was trafficked in this life as a young woman because in a previous life she was bad or she did something bad.
I don't want to say bad. I
Mhm.
don't want to say bad. In a previous life, maybe she did certain things that required her to go through extreme experience in this world for her to maybe there was a insensitivity in her neshama in some way. Maybe there was thick-skinned to a point of being too thick-skinned. So
I
she
see.
comes into this life and she has extreme challenge and extreme suffering to enable her neshama to sensitize itself in a completely different way, to, in a way, break past those external barriers to her truth and her light of her being. And so when you go through very demanding, challenging, horrible, can't even imagine what she went through, but it certainly takes off what we call klippa, right? From
Mhm.
all of the Tu B'Shvat Seder's, it takes off some hard outer shell and exposes the vulnerable soul within. And sometimes certain people need a stronger experience to break through to their soul level. And maybe in the previous lifetime, certain things that happened, I don't know if why they happened, but her soul needed a very strong experience to access her light in this way, where there's no choice. Like when you go through that level of suffering or that level of challenge, what we said on Tu B'Shvat, like an olive, the more the olive is pressed, the more the oil comes out. So Melissa in this lifetime has had an experience where she's gotten a lot of pressure to squeeze out that oil. She needed, because if it happened from a soul perspective, it's something that needed to happen, not as a punishment, but as a way to elicit from her that oil, that beautiful illuminating light that you can only light a menorah with olive oil. Olive oil is the most precious light of all, but it gets squeezed out. It needed a strong press to get it out, to break through maybe some situations in a previous life where there were levels of insensitivity, tough skinnedness, callousness in some way. So I would imagine that what she went through was deeply sensitizing and ripping, like the tough outer skin off to get to the inside in a very powerful way. That's how I would answer that. I hope, Melissa, that that's helpful or clarifying. You can text to Linda if that answers or clarifies the question. Yeah,
Okay.
all
Okay.
right.
That was really beautiful. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome. And
Rafa, can you hear
yeah,
me?
Bracha.
uh,
Can you hear me?
yes, I can hear you now. Yes.
I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that you mentioned that about the special needs. I didn't know that about my patient. I knew that she wasn't coming back for herself, but you just like clarified it more, right? Like for the people that are taking care of her, you
Right.
know,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know for myself, my daughter came into the world for just 2.5 years and totally transformed me in a very big way.
right.
I'm very, very grateful that she gave us that gift of coming, to change me, to change our family. So I'm very grateful to her.
Wow, that's wow.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I've been with this girl, I've been with her almost 20 years, so
Yes.
you can
Mhm.
imagine.
Yeah. Okay. All right, I'm gonna
All
go.
right.
Good
Let's
night,
say good
Thank
everybody.
night. All
you.
the
Have a
best.
good
Sei
night.
gesund.
Have a good night.
Thank
Thank you for the
you.
great
Bye.
class.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for coming.